Recording. We are good. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode on the Dynamic Lifestyle Podcast. We have the one and only Dom D Agostino in the house. How you doing this morning?
Doing well. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. And you mentioned too, right before we hit the record button, you said that you're at your campus right now in Florida. So it's what remind me what the university is?
Yeah, this is University of South Florida, but
Okay.
we're in Tampa.
Yeah.
In 1956, it was the southernmost university in Florida. So that's why people think I'm in Miami, but I'm in actually in the middle, but it's University of South Florida.
Gotcha. Yeah. And then we just touched up on I asked if it's like a ghost town there, if there's going to be students going back on campus, and you said that nobody's there right now. So, I mean, just let's touch up on that. I mean, it's just really interesting times right now with this whole coronavirus going on. So you as an educator, tell me how you've had to adapt to this, and more importantly, the students as well too.
Yeah. I guess it was February. Maybe we started thinking about, this could potentially push us to migrate. And in March, it became a reality that we started making transitions to migrate. I was teaching neuroscience and physiology and a couple other classes. And, the school made the decision, as is every other school. I think maybe we're a little sooner to do it because things are getting pretty bad in our area. But online teaching has been a really good adaptive process. I think it's good that we've all been able to adapt as faculty, and the students love it. Actually, like a third of them sometimes didn't come to class anyway because everything gets migrated onto Blackboard. Although we try to encourage everybody to come to class all the time. But the thing that, has really hurt us is working in the lab, right? To be able to run experiments. We have government contracts with the Navy and Department of Defense and various businesses. We have, industry contracts, and we don't have the manpower. We don't have the ability to get this research done. So we're just starting, we're maintaining our animal colonies and things like that. And we're doing some things, but it's really stalled our research, and we're just trying to, get back into the swing of things so we can get, forward progress. In the meantime, we've been super productive in writing and just generating content for our science and analyzing data and things like that. So,
yeah. That's really interesting. I just can't imagine, just having you go from so many years to just teaching and having students and the whole campus full, and then all of a sudden it's just like ghost town, like nobody's there. But I mean, it seems like you guys are making the best of the situation.
Yeah, it's bizarre, but I think we're kind of lucky in that, as educators, classes will go on, and we're really lucky to have an online format where a lot of the systems have migrated, Zoom, but we use Microsoft Teams, and, students can ask questions. I probably spend about twice the amount of time teaching as I normally do, just because I have to maintain office hours and do review sessions and things like that. But I think that the students are doing just as well in all the test material, or better. So that's been really great to see that. And, so I think we're in an okay position moving forward with education, but in regards to research, we have some challenges ahead.
Right. Yeah. Well, all right, Dom. So I really want to kind of kick this off with some fun and what we call rapid dynamic questions. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So the first question is, Dom, let's say there was, a big billboard out there in Florida, and this billboard basically granted you to say any message that you wanted on it. What would this billboard say and why?
Everybody's go, go, go. And it seems like with COVID, things are actually more hectic. So I just kind of a mantra I say to myself is just be still. And I think, I wake up and I look at my schedule and I do some spiritual things in the beginning, but I always allocate time for, constructive downtime, creative downtime. So I think one of my spiritual mentors, actually Fred Hatfield, was the late Fred Hatfield. He kind of used that phrase a lot, Dominic, you just gotta be still, when I was right in the middle of, my academic tenure process. So.
Gotcha. What's your go-to way to consume content? Is it audio, video, written?
I do a lot of audiobooks. I work on a farm a lot, and we have a farm, and I have to be on the tractor or kind of do tasks where I can, listen to something. And usually like every 4 or 5 books that I listen to, I buy the actual book and then I take notes in it and read. But I read every day and I listen to audio books and podcasts pretty much every day.
Nice.
Most days.
Yeah. What are you consuming right now, audio wise?
Audio wise, I just posted about this the other day. I just finished a book. It's called A Short Story of Nearly Everything. And it's just kind of, from a scientific perspective, sort of like, a discussion of everything from the origins of the universe to our human evolution. And, I like a lot of podcasts like Tim Ferriss and Joe Rogan and Peter Attia. It's more sciencey. I probably have about a half dozen podcasts I listen to. You guys are great too, from a business perspective.
Thank you.
We've transitioned over the years to kind of move from just not only academic science, but also creating a business platform and an informational platform. And I see you guys as great mentors in that space and the people that you have on too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And then also too, right now too, like what is it that 1 or 2 books that somebody would read that was complete game changers that you read?
Game changers. Wow. Everything is like, kind of specific. So if I go back, books that had like the greatest impact on me were a book that a friend recommended, and it was called Personal Power by Anthony Robbins. And I think I was only like 17 or 18 at the time. And it had like a 30-day audio cassette. If you don't remember the audio cassette.
Yeah, I heard about this.
So, that, and then the second book I bought was like Awaken the Giant Within. Mm-hmm. And that was a really, that actually made a major impact in my academic performance, because it allowed me, I started journaling and writing things down. And once I started journaling and writing things down, the process of writing things down and keeping my notebook with me all the day, and it just highlighting the things that I would have to get done during the day, that simple thing made a huge difference in my life, to be able to sit down and plan in the morning each day. And what I would do at night, I would kind of write out things at night and then revisit it in the morning. So I'd kind of be sleeping on it, over the night. And that simple thing probably made the biggest impact in my life. Right.
Gotcha. Let's finish this sentence. The fitness industry needs more of.
It definitely needs. People need to support one another instead of attacking one another, and kind of, I think a lot of people, they try to maybe build up their persona by attacking different ideas, whether that be, a ketogenic diet or just, a particular way of training. So I tend to be I try to put out positive information and just try to be neutral against the things that I just think are, but I think it's important to call out BS when things are BS and it's hurting people. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I think there needs to be an equal or more amount of, significantly more amount of support for different ideas and things that people are promoting. So I think we just need more kind of people to help support one another and really try to grow our platforms by, making it a positive experience for people to sort of visit whatever content we're putting out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. And what do you currently fear right now the most?
We definitely have some financial uncertainty with sort of industry contracts. So some of the research that we do is funded by industry from different players in the market of ketogenic diets, therapeutic ketogenic diets, clinical. That and some of our government contracts, we do research with NASA, and we're actually part of space analog missions where we're involved with training astronauts or going to a particular location to vet out different procedures, technologies, and processes for space missions. And that research, we are supposed to be doing it right now, has been put on hold. So yeah, I'm kind of scared about when will this research, because this is like what I do. This is what I'm known for, and this is how we make our living, by generating data, and then going from grant to grant. And the research grants support our lab and all my personnel that I have to pay salaries for. But if we can't do the research, that's a big variable there. How are we going to move forward?
Yeah, gotcha. If there's any other, oh yeah, absolutely. No, you have to be. Yeah. If there was any other profession that you could seek, or just anything that you wanted else to do besides research, what would that be?
Yeah, I grew up on a farm, just doing hard work and baling hay, and from the age of 10, 11, 12. And then I got into working out. But I love nature. My wife and I like to be as close to nature as possible. We have a farm, we have dogs, we have cows, and I spend a significant amount of time doing that. And I like the science behind it, and I like sort of just being outside and working outside with my hands and learning different skills, from agricultural to animal husbandry to, maintenance of livestock and things like that. So probably transition to farming.
Right on.
That's really cool. All right, Dom, so you're officially off the hot seat, so we can all breathe now. But Dom, I want to kickstart this whole entire discussion off of just kind of going back into your story, like really digging deep into the journey. That's what I really like to know, like the why behind what motivated people to get into their profession and their expertise. So I know that you're an associate professor at the University of South Florida. Like you said, you do a lot of research around the ketogenic diet, which we're going to definitely talk about in a little bit. But take us back in that moment when it was like that pivotal moment that you just knew, like that aha moment, if it was an epiphany where it's like, you know what, I have to go down this road to go and be an associate professor and even do like research, to really help and make the world a better place. Can you kind of go back down that road?
Yeah. Well, I've always been into like fitness and nutrition and majored in it in undergrad, but I didn't really see a career that paid well, I guess. So I did my PhD in neuroscience. And after I finished that in 2004, I was funded by the military to develop an anti-seizure strategy to help Navy SEAL warfighters that use a closed circuit rebreather for their special operations missions. And so essentially I was looking for drugs that could prevent seizures. And in the process of investigating that and researching that, I found that the ketogenic diet was not a fad diet used in bodybuilding, but it was actually a medical diet that had been around for about 100 years. So I gradually, over the course of about 2 or 3 years, transitioned away from drugs and focused more on the anti-seizure neuroprotective effects of the ketogenic diet. This is as I was going into a tenure track position. Some people thought it was academic suicide to go away from, various new drugs that were coming on the market for this and to focus on a high fat, low carbohydrate diet. It just seemed kind of like snake oil. But I saw that the data was pretty good in humans for a wide range of seizures. And then I worked with Patrick Arnold, one of the chemists in the world, and he was able to develop some unique ketogenic compounds that actually could mimic the anti-seizure effect of the ketogenic diet. So once I saw these things actually working in the lab, I realized that I could build a research program on this, and worked really hard to do so, and have been pretty successful with Office of Navy Research, who has generously funded this work from the beginning, and now we have a lot of different projects going on now.
Right. And then was there anything during that journey where you're on that path, that just really kept you up at night, or you're just maybe skeptical, man, am I really going down the right path? Is there something else that I should be doing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wasn't really a traditional route that I was going, because I was investigating something that it was totally new, looking at a synthetic ketone molecule as an there was a risk in doing that. So yeah, I didn't actually know if the path I was going on was going to be sufficient enough for me to get tenure at the university. And if you don't get tenure, basically you have to pack your bags and go and find another place. So the clock was ticking, because you typically just get 5 years to do this. And the clock started as soon as I started writing grants for this ketogenic strategy that was going to be the cornerstone of my whole, my whole research program, and I would have to recruit students under me, and then they'd be doing their PhD projects on this. And if that failed, then I'd be responsible for, the dissertation research of PhD students and research associates. So, but I had pretty good faith it would work, to at least as good as some of the drugs I was researching. But I had quite a bit of doubt, but enough faith to carry me through, I think.
Right.
And then what's been like I mean, like with everything in life, right? We're always when we're trying to pursue something, a goal, a vision, there's always going to be some sort of obstacle that comes our way. So what was the biggest obstacle that came your way in this whole pursuit?
I'm pretty lucky in that I didn't really face, like, I hear, a lot of people have different obstacles, and funding has always been a challenge, and that kind of keeps me up at night. If I lose my grants, how am I going to pay? I worry about more like paying my employees and stuff, because I feel,
Right.
I can kind of make do with what I have here. But the biggest obstacle was really maybe changing the culture of how we perceive nutrition as a metabolic therapy. And that would be not only for seizures, because I branched into studying cancer. And whenever you talk about diet and cancer management, then people think immediately, this is snake oil. This is, we actually, we focus on the ketogenic diet as an adjuvant to other forms of cancer therapy, like standard of care. And it made sense to go into that direction, which I got the most pushback on. But I went towards brain cancer because a consequence of brain cancer is seizures, and these are drug-resistant seizures. So it made sense to me to actually put patients on a ketogenic diet if they have brain tumors, because the anti-seizure medication was really, decreasing the quality of life. So there was a little bit of pushback from that community about 10 or 12 years ago. And there was no clinical trials, but now we have 35 or 40, registered clinical trials on this. And I feel like the research that we did in animal model research inspired a number of, and my colleague Thomas Seyfried and Adrian Scheck and a number of others did a lot of this research that have inspired the current, clinical. But I've probably gotten the most criticism and pushback from going into the direction of using nutrition as a cancer therapy. But again, like, I'm purely academic, and actually kind of approaching this just as an adjuvant to other forms of care therapy to enhance or augment other forms of therapy. But I did get quite a bit of criticism and pushback from, and still do, but less now because there's more science to support what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for sharing that, because I mean, there has to be something, to where you're going to get some sort of pushback, or just how do you make how do you get people to really believe in, all this research, the concepts and all that. So like, how did you deal with that? Like when you were getting criticism, when people were just saying, oh, this is like, something that I can't, take for real. Like, what did you do to reframe your mindset and just be like, you know what, I'm going to block out all this noise. Like, this is what I believe in, and just keep going.
Yeah, as scientists, I have to stick very close to the science. So I typically don't speak too much beyond the peer-reviewed published research. And that's kind of what I have to do, for my job. Although sometimes I believe in it a little bit more than the science. But I guess where it hurts me, that some people take the research that we do and they sensationalize it, or they extrapolate upon the findings. And because my name is associated with that research, it comes back to me like, and in some situations that, people were saying that you should do away with the standard of care and just do a ketogenic diet. But in no cases do I know of that would a ketogenic diet cure cancer. So, and even our lab never uses the ketogenic diet as the standalone therapy. We always use it in the context of another form of therapy. Like, we've done hyperbaric oxygen therapy. We do drug research too. We do combination therapies. We work with Moffitt Cancer Center, who's basically just completely standard of care, but they're adopting this approach in some of the patients with a focus on brain tumor patients. So, how I deal with it is that I just I dig my heels in and just kind of stick to the science and use that as a foundation. And we're not really going to get anywhere unless this process is very incremental. And if you get experimental results and jump to the conclusion that this needs to be used above all other forms of therapy, then that's not a very smart thing to do.
Yeah.
So I try to kind of view things as, let's take incremental approaches as the data accumulates to support this as a viable therapy that people can do for certain forms of cancer.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So let's dig into this, Dom, about kind of like the ketogenic diet and your guys' labs, results, because I know you guys have been doing this for 10 years now, so I want to dig into this because, we do have some health and fitness advocates listening to this, and then also fitness professionals that we work with right now, so they can better serve their clients if that's a nutrition concept they want to use, with their clients with the keto diet. So what would have been some of the biggest breakthroughs the past 10 years, like your lab and research has kind of shown, like in a physical performance standpoint and maybe just health and metabolic standpoint?
Yeah, what we see consistently is that with a ketogenic diet, and a lot of research that we do is not necessarily the diet, but developing novel forms of ketone supplementation that can produce what we call hyperketonemia, so elevate the ketones in the bloodstream. And by virtue of shifting the body's metabolic physiology, you can change brain energy metabolism and the neuropharmacology of the brain in a way that has an anti-seizure effect. So that can work for oxygen toxicity seizures, which I study in the context of diving, something called Angelman syndrome, which we have a registered clinical trial for now. And we're investigating things like glucose transporter deficiency syndrome and other things that you guys may have not heard about that are neurometabolic diseases where the brain is just not getting the energy that it needs. So I mean, that's really like a breakthrough from my perspective, because the ketogenic diet, it's a standard of care for a number of neurometabolic diseases. And some patients are unwilling or unable to follow this kind of diet. So a supplement that can elevate this metabolic substrate and supply it to the brain would dramatically change the quality of life. So that has probably been our main focus. And in the context of cancer, it can have a muscle sparing effect or an anti-catabolic effect. And that may jump over to the world of fitness and performance, because when you're in a state of metabolic or called physiological ketosis, different from diabetic ketoacidosis, which results from an absence of insulin. When you're on a ketogenic diet, I think a ketogenic diet would be appropriate, maybe not ideal, it depends on the person, but if you're in a calorie deficit, the elevation of ketones when you're in a calorie deficit can be beneficial from a brain energy metabolism perspective and also from an anti-catabolic perspective. Because from an evolutionary standpoint, the reason why we can fast and not catabolize all our skeletal muscle is that the fatty acid oxidation in the liver produces these ketone bodies, which are elevated higher on a ketogenic diet, and they have signaling properties, but they have anti-catabolic effects and can help spare gluconeogenic amino acids in the skeletal muscle. So I think there's a pretty good rationale for that. And I think when it comes to the world of fitness and performance, I think where the ketogenic diet could shine is in the context of body recomposition. If you go on a fat loss diet and you want to get lean and cut, you have to cut your calories. Like, there's no way around it. And if you go into a calorie deficit and your ketone bodies are elevated, I think you'll have an advantage from a neurobiology perspective, in that your brain will be happier because it won't have to deal with significant fluctuations in the glucose level. So you could actually go mildly hypoglycemic, and if your ketones are elevated, that would be imperceptible. So that, from a practical standpoint, I think that's pretty significant. And I experienced that when I started tinkering with the ketogenic diet. When you do research on something, you just kind of want to experience it too. Mm-hmm. And I kind of noticed that effect, that it was easier to be in a calorie deficit on a ketogenic diet than with a carbohydrate-based diet, for sure.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was going to ask. My follow-up is like, is this, I know you practice and preach this and you've tested it, but I was going to say, do you follow a ketogenic diet like all year round, or just like you said, just like when you're looking to, shed some fat and just be in a calorie deficit?
Yeah, I follow low carb for sure. And then on some days, I will be, more ketogenic than other days. And last month, every month I do like a fasting experiment. And last month it was just like 3 days. And I try to assess how that affects my thinking and how even affects my performance. And now I wear a continuous glucose monitor where I can evaluate different diets and different supplements. I can evaluate the effect of stress, different macronutrient ratios, different supplements, whether it's a ketone supplement or even a carbohydrate supplement, how that impacts my blood glucose and the area under the curve. And I also measure insulin in response to different dietary patterns or different supplements to determine how insulin is changing. And also it's interesting to see how exercise affects your glucose levels too. I mean, type 2 diabetes is a tremendous problem. And there are simple things that we could do. This morning, we sent out a newsletter, and it was my continuous glucose monitor data showing after I ate a like 1,500 calorie meal, I went for a short 30-minute walk, and that can completely abolish the postprandial spike in glucose because the protein content was pretty high. It was like 75 grams protein. And just simply going for a walk after meals can make a tremendous difference on glycemic variability. So I love to do like experiments like this. And I like, even if we're not doing them in the lab, I'm always doing something on myself. And I try to do things that have actionable takeaways. Like after I do it, and I do it a couple of times, I could validate it, put the data together, and put it out in a newsletter or a blog, and it can help somebody. Like this is what I'm doing now.
Yeah. And I love that. Thanks for sharing that too. And I really like how you're really observant and you just like keep the data and you make these observations, like, how am I feeling? How's like my brain feeling? How am I thinking? And I don't think enough people do that, right? They just hear like these trends and concepts when it comes to nutrition, just like, oh, keto, paleo, just macros. And they do it for a couple of weeks and they're just like, oh, I can't sustain this ketogenic diet. But it's like, they're not even paying attention to how they're performing, just like little things, habits, just rituals, and just how it's just making them operate and perform like in different ways. So that's where I'm just like, there's got to be a little bit more, for people just to buy into this.
Yeah, I think the farther you get along, like you guys have been in this game for a long time, you're super fit, you're at the top of you're like elite level fitness. So you start to understand this a little bit more than maybe new people jumping onto something. What I've experienced too is that when I'm in a fasted state, or even a calorie deficit, like if I'm dieting, my body becomes very sensitive to the food and the things that I put in, from caffeine to carbohydrates to, training adaptations and stuff. And you become more perceptive and just introspective of how things are affecting you. And I think, I realized early on that the more I understood it and analyzed it, the more I could leverage that knowledge to bring my body where I wanted it to go, whether that could be a fat loss, whether it could be a bulking period, or it could be, I was mostly always focused in strength and really using that information to help incrementally increase my powerlifting strength over time.
Yeah, absolutely. And just even given, oh, go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, like, how come you think, Dom, just that like when people get into just like their health and fitness journey or health and wellness, whatever you want to call it, the popular media kind of takes over, even social media these days too. It just takes over everything that the research points out. And it's like almost like abstract kind of like conclusions. And then they'll sit there and put that into practice, and they'll sit there and just be like, oh, like I'm only going to do like a ketogenic diet. I'm only going to do intermittent fasting diet. I'm only going to count macros. It's almost like they're married to it. And it's if they break that law of like intertwining different concepts, like the nutrition police is going to come and put them in jail or something like that. Like, why do you think that is, with all of these trendy nutrition fads and concepts?
Well, people are looking for a quick fix. And I think you just really have to go back to the basics. And, I always keep my metabolic physiology, nutrition textbook, that stuff is still relevant, where maybe a lot of ketogenic diet practitioners would be like, forget everything you know about nutrition and just listen to what I'm going to tell you. You know, eliminate carbs and you're going to feel better. So, so I'm still kind of a core sort of foundational person and a little more conventional. And I just view the ketogenic diet, low carb, intermittent fasting as tools that people can leverage to get them where they want to be. And they shouldn't, probably not a good idea to be on a ketogenic diet all the time. Although I kind of am, and I feel I'm also a researcher, so I have to understand it from different perspectives. So I'm constantly researching on myself. But it is just a tool, and it may be very effective for some people. It's interesting that the people who are most interested in the ketogenic diet are the people who need it the least. So if you are a fit athlete, your carbohydrate tolerance is probably fantastic, and you could probably do really well on carbohydrates. But if you are an insulin, someone who's very insulin resistant and someone who's obese and have type 2 diabetes, I believe that, the ketogenic diet, or just not even a ketogenic diet, just carbohydrate restriction is probably the most powerful tool that I can think of, more powerful than drugs, to really decrease glycemic variability and to get all your metabolic biomarkers into a healthy range. There's nothing better than carbohydrate restriction. I mean, you could achieve it with calorie restriction, but I believe the person will be more hungry along the way, and they're still going to have glycemic fluctuations that can be significantly attenuated if you do a low carb approach. So, I studied the context from seizures and cancer, but we're also do quite a bit of research and published on the glucose lowering effect of a ketogenic diet, but also just ketones themselves. If you take ketones orally, and this is like a new finding, we don't know the reasons why, but it can lower your blood glucose level. And that's probably one of the biggest therapeutic applications of what we have discovered so far, is that you can actually lower your blood glucose by consuming ketone supplementation. And so we're putting a lot of time and effort into understanding that. And I don't talk about it a whole lot because I don't understand it. It's probably doing a number of things: insulin sensitivity, hepatic glucose output, and maybe causing a small release of insulin that could facilitate glucose disposal, and probably a combination of things.
Yeah, gotcha. Super interesting. So what would you say too, like what is the big end goal, with this, with all your research that you're doing in your lab, what is the big end goal with your vision?
Well, when I started out in grad school, I was doing cellular neuroscience using the patch clamp technique, where you're measuring from one neuron and just very in vitro reduced preparation. And over the years, I've migrated to looking at like brain tissue, and then whole animal experiments, and then human experiments. We subcontract that to Duke University to, research where I'm actually the research subject, like on a NASA space analog mission. So now we're really interested in transitioning the science to human application. And that could be performance application, which we're working on now, and also clinical application of the new therapies and technologies that we're developing and have various patents on. So we really want to vet out and determine what works, and then move that into human clinical trials as fast as possible.
Yeah, very cool.
Awesome.
All right, Dom, I want to kind of shift gears here and like talk about some business stuff, some entrepreneurial stuff. So, I mean, what are some like entrepreneurial projects that you're working on currently right now, like aside from just like researching and doing all that type of stuff in the lab?
Yeah, I would say my wife has a really strong entrepreneurial spirit, because she's an academic and she's a research assistant professor at the university, but has a little more time to do some of the business stuff. So we have a website, KetoNutrition.org, where we develop content, and we don't sell any products there, but we put out a lot of free content, and then various companies that develop products that we like, we love to test them. And I'll test them with a continuous glucose monitor. I'll do blood work and things like that. And then we put some of those products on the website. Sometimes the companies will give us an affiliate link. Mm-hmm. And from affiliate income, we can actually, fund some of the research that we do. So that's been kind of cool. And, so that's Keto Nutrition. And then Ketone Technologies is a company that we have where we work with our university to license out different patents and technologies that would be of interest to us. And, and some of those things, one of the things that we have now is the effects of using ketones to prevent toxicity from various gases. So we're doing some research on that, and ketone technologies also is involved in consulting, and we also do a lot of research and development, and we support research with government organizations like with DARPA and with NASA. And this is really to just what I was talking about moving the science into what we call operational performance. So an operational performance could be like a warfighter, it could be an astronaut, it could be an aquanaut. If you work underwater and you stay in a water environment and work, you become an aquanaut. My wife and I are both aquanauts. So ketone technologies is really, interested. We're in the research and development phase now, but we would like to ultimately develop and commercialize different products and technologies that can be incorporated into different operational settings. And that's kind of what we're focusing on. So that's ketone technologies, and then keto nutrition is more like the layman's person. Like I break down the science, and then we have products. I have consultants on there, and I just try to inform everybody as much as possible on the science that we're doing.
Yeah, I saw your guys' site before that we put together these questions, and man, you guys got some really great stuff like on that site. So it's a really good like resource and hub for anybody that wants to go on there and kind of learn more about what's going on with the latest research on ketogenic diets and supplements. So you guys are doing some great stuff there.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I got to thank my assistant Christy and some of the students in my lab. They do a lot of work on helping with the blog and putting together articles. One of my former PhD students, Andrew Kutnick, is a power lifter, and he did the research to show ketone bodies have an anti-catabolic effect. And as a type 1 diabetic, he has a very interesting story because he uses a low-carb ketogenic approach to manage his type 1 diabetes. And he actually gave a TEDx talk, talking about using low carb for type 1 diabetes, which was unheard of, just a few years ago. So he's kind of a pioneer in that space. And the students that work under me in the lab are very passionate about nutrition as medicine. And I think that inspires and plays a very big role in the success of our lab, over the last decade.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like you put together like an A team around you.
Yeah, I did. They just happened to come to me. It's like I keep an eye out for them, but the right students just came to me at the right time. And I really have to give them much of the credit because they're in the trenches. They're doing the work day in and day out. And they're all super hard workers and super smart. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's one thing we advocate too. I mean, our mentors told us early on, like, guys, you have to have like an A team around you and delegate certain tasks like strengths and weaknesses, just really be self-aware with that. So it's good to see that you guys are doing that. And then, I mean, like you said, they're in the trenches, they're getting their hands dirty, they're learning all these different things. And yeah, so my question too, Dom, is like, what's something that you've learned just like through just being an entrepreneur like this last decade, that's like just something that just every person should know if they are an aspiring entrepreneur going forward?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of like a entrepreneur in training, but what I've observed is that really don't think about the money stream. Just think about what kind of value can I give, and what's the market? Try to understand the market as much as possible. And you can't do everything, but you want to take the thing that you have the highest expertise on, and the research, and and just encompass that focus on developing something that could be content, that could be a scientific experiment, or it could be a product. And to develop that in a way that gives value to the people who are interested in that particular expertise. And so I try not to stray too far. I get interested in things like, working on the farm, and that may become part of what we're doing too, developing food sources that are, definitely like no GMO, organic. We're like cleaning up our farm now and building up the soil, very, very interested in, advocating for regenerative farming. That's something that we want to do. And I'm interested in that, but I really want to focus on sort of the bread and butter, which is this idea of changing your metabolic physiology for therapeutic purposes, but also from a lifestyle perspective too. So I think from an entrepreneurial perspective, not to try to delve into too many things, but know your one thing and focus on that, and focus on it in a way that gives value to the people who are following you.
Love it.
Yeah, that's great. And would you say some of your students, like they kind of have that issue of just like not knowing what to do, as far as like getting themselves out there content wise, or, even starting a little like side hustle with consulting or coaching or something like that?
Yeah, I think I would say the students under me actually have a lot of opportunities. I think one thing that I'm fortunate is that I've been a pretty good connector with people, and I think when I was in the lab doing my PhD, I didn't have any distractions. I just had my experiments. So I should have actually finished in like 3 years, but it took me like 5 or 6 years. Anyway, that's another story. But I think nowadays, like I wasn't even online back then. I mean, we barely just had the internet. It was just starting up, 25 years ago when I was in college. So yeah, I think it's become a real problem for students. And my students I'm very lucky in that they're very focused, but I've seen a lot of other graduate students, just lose focus, and there's just so much enticing opportunities, and grad school doesn't pay that much, right? So, and there's just so much content, a lot of good content, and a lot of distractions out there. So I think it's important for like a mentor to touch base with and have it just kind of go around the table, so to speak, and figure out what everyone's been doing, and to try to do, keep them on track as much as possible. Luckily, my crew is very motivated on their particular projects, but yeah, I think the problem is that they could have so many great opportunities. It's hard for them. When you're a PhD student, you really have to focus on your narrow project to get done. And then opportunities, you can take advantage of them later on. And I tend to dabble in too many things as
we all do.
faculty member, and maybe I have to just throttle back a little bit and focus a little bit more on like the one thing. But those opportunities have really helped me out a lot too.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you actually mentioned mentors too. Like, was there any key mentors like that played pivotal roles like in your success? I mean, I know you got coached by Lane too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, I would consider Lane a mentor for sure. Like, I guess we knew each other 2007, 2008. I remember, I think we roomed together at experimental biology meeting, and we've been very good friends ever since. We have a little bit different views about, optimal nutrition and things like that, but it's like, I think we agree on 99% of the things. People think we disagree, but actually we agree, and super smart. And when I got into bodybuilding, just from a recreational perspective, and the more I studied the content that he was putting out there and what he was advocating, it made a lot of sense. And at the time on bodybuilding.com, there was guys like Paul Revelia and Eric Helms. I think you guys had him on there. There was like this core crew back in like 2006, 7, and 8 that were super, super active on bodybuilding.com. And I learned from everyone, but Lane was like, the key person there that everyone was watching and following the content coming out. So he lives, near me here, and, we're maintaining great friends. But probably a guy who had equal or maybe even more influence just from, a pure like bodybuilding perspective was there's a Ronald Coleman that you might not have. There's Ron Coleman, and then there's a Ronald Coleman who actually is an IFBB pro and won the Team Universe before Skip LaCour won it, and then Jeff Willett. And he was a very early mentor to me, a spiritual mentor, but also sort of a mentor from like a training perspective about how to train and not get hurt, and how to hit your, I guess our power went out here, and how to hit your, your bodies from different angles and stuff. So Ronald Coleman, IFBB pro, not to be confused with Ron Coleman. I think his nickname was Alcatraz. And yeah, just, you know, those people. And then I had a lot of academic mentors along the way. And, you know, Professor Jay Dean, who's still my colleague here, is the reason I was able to take this academic path and go this route. But yeah, mentors are really, really key. So I would encourage your listeners out there to identify people who are where you want to go and learn from them, and you're going to get there faster for sure, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
And don't be, you know, I was kind of a shy, introverted person, but from the perspective of identifying mentors, I think a good aspect of my personality was that I would really latch on to mentors and just try to probe to get as much information as possible. And usually people are pretty, you know, enthusiastic to talk about themselves and what they're doing. And in most cases in helping other people too. And I try to do the same too, because a lot of undergrad students come to me and I try to give them as much time as possible. It's not always possible to talk to everybody, but I try to do the same thing that, you know, my mentors did for me, is just give them the time. That's the most valuable asset we have.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something we advocate to people too, is just, you know, hire mentors, expedite the learning curve, and just, man, our mentors were huge, you know, pivotal, just like, you know, just during our time and just, you know, our success. Just we still continue to seek out mentors, and, you know, shout out to Lane Norton. I mean, he was one of them as well too. So great guy. So Dom, let's transition into lifestyle, because that is the name of this podcast, the Dynamic Lifestyle Podcast. So we're really, really interested in people's day-to-day lives. And I know you said most of the time you're in the lab, you're researching, and then you're on your farm. So give us a day in the life of Dom D Agostino.
Okay. Well, I wake up usually about an hour or two before my wife, but I still get about 7 hours sleep. And, you know, first thing I do is just drink a big glass of water. I get the water brewing for the coffee, for my French press, and get the dogs food already. Although I don't let them out, because I really like to have an hour to hour and a half of peace and quiet to myself.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's still usually a little bit dark. And yeah, the first thing I do, actually, you know, I'm kind of a spiritual person, and I read scripture for like the first maybe 30 minutes. And then I read particular passages in scripture, and then I will journal on that. And that really sets the, you know, the tone, the motivation, and the momentum for the day. And after I do that, I look at my planner, and I write down all the things that need to be done, and then I put stars next to things that are non-negotiable. I mean, that stars at the end of the day, these things need to be done. And one of the things on there that I always have is creative downtime, right? Because if I don't schedule, I get so passionate and so involved with my work that if I do not actually schedule in downtime, like with my wife, with the dogs, where we just kind of just go out and just be together and not have anything in particular to do, right? For that, we typically do walks and we talk about our day and things like that, or just kind of just hang out. So I think that's like super important, to get the work stuff out of the way, frame it in the morning, get the work stuff out of the way, and allocate, you know, that creative downtime could come in the morning, afternoon, or evening, or whatever. But I think is an important aspect of what I do. And I try to, nowadays with COVID, I come into the lab about 2 or 3 times a week. But when I'm working from home, it's pretty nice, because I can work a little bit and then do a little bit of work outside, you know, jump at the pool, get back to my desk and do things, get the power back on. So yeah, I think I'm fortunate in that, you know, I have a home office. I have a gym at home in the barn, and
Nice.
I have all my weights there, everything that I need. I just do like very basic training. So, and to break up the monotony, a lot of times I've been doing just like one exercise, main focus exercise per day. I've always trained just like 3 times a week, but I've been trying to train like pretty much every day, unless I have a pretty brutal workout, but it's like super short. My workouts have always been super short, like 15 to 30 minutes, but it'll be a particular body part. And and I try to break it up like that. And I do a lot of work outside that I call active recovery.
Yeah.
So it's lifting things on the farm, moving your body.
Mm-hmm.
And on days that like the day after training heavy and I'm a little bit sore, that active recovery really facilitates recovery. I think just getting your body moving, and as long as it's not too strenuous. So.
Yeah. So like, for example, like, one of those like exercises you focus on for like 20 minutes, like for example, you'll do like maybe like a deadlift and then kind of just do like high volume on that, or like, I'm just curious because it's kind of an interesting concept.
Yeah. Yesterday, what did I do? Oh, yesterday I tweaked my back out. I was actually swinging an axe. I was chopping up stumps with an axe, and I kind of tore a lower back muscle about a week or so ago. So I was going to do bent rows yesterday, but I did one arm rows, and I have an Olympic set of dumbbells where I can even put like the 45s on if I have to. So the only exercise I did that day, and I can support myself to not re-injure my lower back, was one arm rows. And I did 3 or 4 sets, I think, in each hand. And that was it. And I was power washing the barn, and it started pouring rain. So I went inside the barn and I did 15 minutes, and now I'm pretty sore today. And today I will actually I've been using the hex bar a lot, or the trap bar.
Yeah.
And there's a guy that I'm friends with on Facebook. He said he'd give me $1,000 if I could, and put it towards my research, if I could clean 345s on each side, get back into the incline position and press it 5 times. So my lower back is not recovered enough to be able to clean that up because it's pretty hard, but I think I can press it. So today I'm going to work on hex bar incline presses. And I'm glad he challenged me to do that, because using a neutral grip on pressing is like a game changer for my shoulder.
Yeah.
So now it's like one of my new favorite exercises is actually like overhead presses with the hex bar, or like incline presses with the hex bar, and my shoulders are kind of thanking me for that. So I try to do a lot of variation.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. Like if you end up getting to doing that, that bet, then put that on video and tag us.
I will. I will post it to Instagram, but I will have it, post on Twitter and Facebook too. Hopefully within the next week, I'll be able to do it. I'm going to do a strength test today, and if I'm good enough to press it up, then I think in about a week I'll be able to clean it up and get it into position.
Yeah, nice. All right, Dom. So we're coming to an end on this this awesome conversation that we've had with you, and super grateful for this. And before I ask the last question, I just want to commend you and just tell you just all the stuff that you're doing is really, really awesome. I know we met like 5 years ago at the ISN conference in Clearwater, Florida. So, I've been trying to get you on the show for a long time. I know you're a busy guy, and you've made great appearances like on the Joe Rogan podcast, Tim Ferriss show. So kudos to you on that, and just everything you guys are doing in you guys' lab to make the world a better place with health and wellness. So, I just want to commend you on that.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me on too.
Yeah.
Sorry it took so long to get on.
Yeah, no worries.
More to talk about.
Yeah. So Dom, what does living a dynamic lifestyle mean to you?
It means a lot of things. I think, the situation we're in now with COVID-19 has really forced us to get out of our comfort zone in some ways. So I think, it's the timing to be more dynamic than ever. So what you guys are promoting and putting out there, and the different people that you put on or have on the show, your listeners can take away from each of them and actually put that into actionable. There's a lot of actionable takeaways there. So in one way, I guess I've been dynamic is that I saw this negative situation as a lot of opportunity. And I think the people who are doing well now, and I really feel for people who have gotten COVID-19 or have a family member or who's died from it. I know this has affected a lot of people from a negative health consequences, but also from a business perspective. But I think everybody can look at a situation, and I had a mentor that always said, whenever something negative happens, always think, how can I leverage this? He'd always say that, and he is very high up in the military. And did a great job at doing that. And I think that's what we have to do. And I think that's part of being a dynamic person, is to look at a situation And if you look at it as a setback, it's going to be a setback. But if you look at it as an opportunity that you can leverage, there's no doubt in my mind that you can do that. And all the entrepreneurs out there can do that, even from, I've had injuries before, and then I refocus on a weak point and actually end up a lot stronger because, after letting an injury repair itself for like a couple months or something. I've never really had any serious injuries, so I'm super lucky, but we can always leverage a setback or a bad situation. Yeah. So I guess that would be like my main kind of takeaway.
Yeah.
100%.
Powerful, and absolutely agree 100% on that. So Dom, where can, is there anything we could support you on particular right now? And where can the listeners go find out more information about yourself and what you're doing?
Yeah, I appreciate you offering that. Yeah. I try to compile everything on KetoNutrition.org. So KetoNutrition.org. And also from some of our business stuff is KetoNTechnologies.com. But follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and maybe if you guys could post those, profile links on this when it comes out. But I pretty much put most of my time and effort as far as content on keto nutrition, and also sign up for the newsletter because I try to put fresh content in. A newsletter went out this morning, and it's just like the stuff, I was doing all week, experiments, products I reviewed, things like that. So it's always like the latest science, the latest cool products that are out. When this podcast comes out, I'll put it in a newsletter, and send it out. So those things really help me a lot. The more subscribers and people I have following me, the more the information I can get out there to people.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Awesome. And we'll have all that linked up in the show notes. So once again, Dom, D Agostino, thank you so much for your time, your wisdom. Guys, make sure you guys go follow Dom and all his cool stuff that he's doing. So until next time.